Hey, this is Jim Malcolm with Humanized Technologies. We are back again in Facebook Spaces in virtual reality land, and I am with the very talented, skilled Peter Simcoe.
Why, thank you, Jim. Thanks very much.
Look at that. We just need a little bit of music or something like that for a nice intro.
I need to do my
we'll
song and dance routine, and yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for the compliments.
There you go. You know what? That song and dance routine, it probably fits you really well because you, this is kind of your background. Last time we sat around, we talked a little bit about your guitar collection. We showed some green screen in your room. We did all kinds of stuff, and now it's been, almost 2 weeks now?
Yes.
And a lot has gone on.
What have you
been doing?
Yeah, there's been a few things. I think it has been quite a busy time. Behind us, you can actually see one of the other experiments I've done with the Vuze camera. So I've been working with the Vuze camera. I've been working with Matterport cameras a little bit. I've also been doing some design work, some video work, and all these kind of things. So I can show you a few different things I've been working on, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be fantastic.
Well, let me just give you a quick overview of what I've been doing. So what I would like to show you first is some of the work I've been doing in Matterport. Now, over the last few months, I've been writing a book, well, since like November, December. I've been writing a book for Matterport. And Matterport is a very interesting technology company. They are primarily a software company, but they do actually offer this Matterport this is an example of their Pro2 camera. It's just a little sort of image there. And what actually happens is it will take photographs in 360, but it will also scan using infrared technology to actually scan the area around it. So what you actually get in the end is a 3D model. And recently, here's a little photograph of me down in London. I went down to speak to some of the people down there and interview a couple of what's called Matterport service providers. Now, what they do...
You keep talking. You keep talking. Sure. I'm going to play with this picture here just for a second.
Sure. Matterport service providers are basically people who, as part of their business, or some of them primarily use Matterport cameras to go and scan these environments and create these 360, what they call walkthroughs. So there's me in the office, a proud moment, down in the Matterport office there in London. And so they have this amazing technology that doesn't fail to impress. And what I'd like to do, actually, Jim, if you don't mind flipping the camera around, just to show some video. I'm going to start this again. Let me just bear with me.
This other stuff out of the way.
So yeah, it's just so what Matterport allows you to do is create these. What you can see here is a dollhouse. This is what they call a dollhouse, and the Matterport technology allows you to scan and actually create a 3D model of the environment that's all photographic. And what I've done here is, again, this is why I was showing the guitars a couple of weeks ago when we last spoke. I did that as a quick break when I was actually scanning the room. This is a small project I've been working on where you can actually add other media. So not only will it capture the infrared and then map the photographs onto it, you can add other media to the walkthrough experience here. So this is my guitar collection. I'm going to go on about this again for a little while, but but you can kind of see here there's a variety of angles that I'm able to move to. I'm able to see the fine detail of the guitars, and here there's what's called.
I keep seeing all these little dots. Is that what you're going to go to next?
No, those are the scan points. Yes, those are the points you can actually go to and visit. So you can click towards them or you can click on them, and the actual experience, the actual scan will allow you to move to those points. I just moved to another point there. And what I'm doing is zooming in, using the controls, using the mouse to actually view and zoom into the photographs and see the fine detail. And as I say, here it's allowing you to put in, you can actually see some of the media here. It's allowing you to put video in. It's allowing you to put all sorts of different embedded media into the display, into the walkthrough, and you can move around the scene and take a look in the high resolution photography. Because it's scanning and it moves around, the camera moves around on a tripod. It's able to capture, I think it's 135 meg images raw. I need to find the detail on it. It was very, very high resolution imagery. And so what I'm doing here is I'm working on this project and embedding like bits of sound and different things you can interact with within the scene. That these little dots that you're seeing, the smaller dots, are matter tags where you can embed different things. So it's been a very, very interesting journey for me. I don't know if you want to flip the camera around temporarily.
Sure.
So it's been, it's been a really interesting journey for me to be able to interact with the technology and write about the technology. And this partly came, I'm going to shamelessly promote my book for a second, but this came about partly because Matterport had seen the 360 video handbook that I wrote, and that came out last year. So it's been out for almost a year and a half now. And it actually features the Vuze camera, and the Vuze Plus was just coming out at the time that it was being launched. So it mentions the Vuze Plus as well. But many of the principles, what I tried to do with it, I just got an example page here. What I tried to do was show examples and then describe examples, and a lot of these are taken with the Vuze camera, and give people advice on, look, if you're in this scene, this happened to be a hairdresser salon here, and then I describe, look, this is why the scene is interesting, and these are the challenges associated with taking images or taking video in these environments, and give a little diagram and recommendations of distance and how movement should be allowed to occur within the scene to get the best 3D experience. So yeah, it's very interesting.
So you said something. Yeah. So you said, I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
You said something that's really interesting, right? Because you have to kind of learn how to use 3D and learn how to use a technique and everything. And
yes,
those of us like you and I, and we've been in this space for several years, and we've been studying this and understand it.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a whole new wave of consumers that are coming into the industry now who don't have the experience of 3 or 4 years, that are trying to find easy ways to get started.
Yes.
And that was really the genesis of the VuzeXR, was kind of work as that bridge. But as a working professional like yourself, like, I love the Matterport stuff that you're doing. I think that the dollhouse thing and being able to move around and add all of that media and stuff like that is a really exciting next step for the industry.
Yes.
But while you move on with your story, can you share a little bit, like, how can people get involved in this? Maybe they're watching this for the first time, or they've been on the sideline watching. Like, how can you get started in this whole VR 360 3D kind of world from your perspective?
Well, I think one of the great things is now that you do have such a wide variety of price points on cameras and a wide variety of choices of cameras. So you can even use your mobile phone. I mean, there's some very simple. I mean, it's not really true 360, but I think there's a couple of apps that will allow you to do some very simple 180 imaging. So really, just from your phone, you can actually create some simple 180 images. I've seen that done. I've seen people publish that on Facebook. And as a purist 360, there are limitations that if you have to take several photographs and there's movement in the scene, then you may face problems, because it's going to be stitching the images together to create the 180 photo. But the technology is improving, and the price points and options that are available, there's really now a wide variety. So I think that does bring in more and more experimentation. I think last time we talked about that it does encourage the certain, if you're spending a lot of money, you've got to really recoup that. You've got to really find the business to make that work, and that's where some of the Leica and some of the £20,000 cameras plus, it's not something to just be experimenting and dipping your toe into the water. But there's so many now. I don't know if you want me to name names.
No, you don't have to name names. I mean, if you want to name names, it's fine.
Okay.
But you're right. I mean, there's a laundry list of product out
there.
Yes. And I mean, we can jump through names if you want. My point is a little bit different, which is regardless of where your skill level is right now, there's a product out there that is right for you to get started. And more importantly, there are some really powerful communities that have built around where people who've been in this for a while, like yourself, are very active and are giving advice and, trying to help this next generation of creators. Because what we see is that the more people who create, right, the more that they spend time to create, that means there's more consumption happening, which drives more demand for creative.
Yes.
And so, right, so getting a variety of work out there and from around the world and visibility into all kinds of different things is really what's inspiring that next generation of creator.
Yes, I think that people are, it's still relatively new, and so there's still a novelty value, and there's still many things to be explored. There's still many places to be explored, and that counts for whether it's 360 photographs with entry level cameras, mid range or professional. There's still so many spaces to photograph, so many scans to do with a Matterport, say, to capture the 3D data and photography. So it's quite exciting in terms of it's not like a traditional camera where there's so many photographs of everywhere. There's like here, for example, I haven't seen. If we just flip the camera around here, this is just to describe. I took this with the Vuze camera, the VuzeXR. It was last week. This is what I did since we last spoke. And again, it's another. We talked last time about HDR, high dynamic range, where you take several exposures and you combine them to create a very color-rich photograph. And this is a place where it's actually the border. Sorry, I should explain. This is the border between England and Wales.
I got my pictures everywhere.
These stones are the border between England and Wales, just down the road from where I live. So it's a very, very nice place to go for a walk. It's a cycle path. I mean, you can see along there. And there aren't a huge amount of 360 images on Google Maps for this particular location. And so I think that's partly answering your question, in that there are so many options and so many places still that you can go to with some of these cameras and capture 360 images and really contribute. Where
So are you do you push your work up to Google Maps?
Yes, I do, and I treat it.
Take advantage of all that.
I treat it almost like a sort of mini portfolio, so people could look through and sort of. I mean, with just the end outcome being, it is a portfolio that, hey, Pete Simcoe on Google has done lots of interesting 360 images, and it's just another sort of outlet. Some of them are 2D. If I've taken some interesting images somewhere, but yeah, that's where there's another outlet and another portfolio for my 360 images. And obviously, as the capability of cameras increase and the resolution, again, you can revisit some of these places. So as once you start getting to 8K, 10K, 16K, once these cameras are actually available, I mean, this is technology in the future. Once those are available, you have to revisit. And even Google and with their mapping technology and their photographic for Google Street View, they're going to have to revisit places eventually once they start upgrading. So there is that sort of.
Well, it's interesting. I think they are updating now, because at least here in Austin, I've seen all of a sudden a new wave of Google Map cars driving around. So I don't know if they're just doing new equipment or they're just doing their regular updates or who knows what, but I see
it will go hand in hand. Yeah, it will go hand in hand, I would have thought, because building work is always going on everywhere. I mean, even a small place like Chester, where I live, compared to, say, Austin, it still changes year on year. So Austin must be very, there must be so many new buildings and that kind of thing. So there's always work. There's always work for Street View to be doing. But in amongst that, I'm sure they do change their technology and say, look, we've got these higher resolution cameras. Right, that's the new generation of imaging.
And so you said new higher resolution. So let's talk about Matterport again for a minute.
Okay.
Obviously, the benefit, or the biggest benefit as I see it, of Matterport is that it creates what I refer to as a wireframe, but it's a digital model of the scene.
Yes.
So that you actually have depth maps and you can walk around it and navigate within that space. It's not just a picture.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, is that about resolution, or is that about getting the scan right? Does that make sense?
Not sure. Not quite. If you could explain a little bit more.
So how much of a Matterport image relies on the actual scan data before you put the texture map on top of that frame, and how much is the importance of the camera, right? Because I don't think Matterport's using 60 megapixel cameras.
No,
or anything crazy like that.
I do actually need to find out the specification of the sensors, but the way the camera works is it actually, you put it onto a tripod and it will spin round and it will capture the visual data that way, section by section. So again, you do have issues if there's movement, but the majority of places these cameras are used are indoors. You can do outside scans, but they're not usually recommended. I mean, I've done it just to push the technology. So it's kind of like, it's basically a flatbed scanner that you would put a document on, but they're doing it in 3D in a room. It could be described as that. 3D data comes from infrared. So what happens here is you've got a variety of sensors on this, but there is an infrared sensor that will actually beam out infrared to detect the distance of walls and distance of items around it. And then that's used to actually work out the scan location. So that's why the walking through the building is so feels so accurate, feels so smooth and realistic, is because you've got the realistic images that have been scanned as the camera moves around, but as the camera moves around, it's also collecting where are the objects? What does this place actually look like in terms of 3D data? And you can download object files from the actual output. So you go somewhere, you do a scan, you can actually download an OBJ file that you could put into Unity, and you can do some very interesting things with those files. But you're able to, as part of the Matterport offering, you can download images, you can download a floor plan, especially with the Pro2 camera. And all these things.
But it's not just buying a camera. You have to buy the camera, and then you have to buy a service.
It is.
Is that true?
It has been described in a similar way to. I mean, it's service as a software as a service, which is basically you kind of subscribe in a similar way, shall we say, to Adobe. Where I've got access to Photoshop and I've got access to Premiere Pro, all these different things, because I pay Adobe about £50 a month now, I think it is. So in some ways it's similar with Matterport. You have to subscribe, and there's a certain amount of models you can upload, and there's a certain amount of data you can access, etc. But what you're accessing, I mean, often Matterport are thought of, as I mentioned earlier, as a camera manufacturer. They're not. This is not their primary. It's not their primary goal, and it's not their primary aim. Primary activity. They do these to enable the artificial intelligence, the AI that they've created, to have some solid quality data to work with. But what they're doing now is allowing some of what they describe as entry level, so Rico Theta and Insta360 One X, they've built that into the system to open up the kind of possibilities, as we were talking before about sort of enabling people to try and establish their level. Maybe you could get an Insta360 One X and do more experimentation. And again, there's pricing that suits that kind of market and those people who want to do more of that, sort of more art projects or those sorts of things that they're not quite ready for that mid-level investment or the higher level investment. And also it's compatible with Leica. So the really super expensive cameras that have, LiDAR and all sorts of things, laser sort of depth detection and that kind of stuff. So it's a very, very interesting setup, very, very interesting platform. And again, as I say, they really are a software company, not a hardware company. This is, as I say, it's not their primary aim to be making these. It's the primary aim is to model the world and to have a system that will understand simply from data, what an object is, rather than just seeing it as numbers. So it's that next leap,
which is a lot of work. Yeah, which is a lot of work that
Mm.
Intel has been doing for a lot of years, and being able to collect all of these different pictures and coming back and recreating those spaces strictly from ultimately in the future, right? Thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pictures that people take in that environment, push up to the cloud. They get cloud sourced. You can do all kinds of amazing things. So the way that I look at it, and I hope the industry looks at it, right, is get out and take more pictures.
Yes.
Because those pictures, when they're all compiled together in the future, man, one generation, 2 generations, 3 generations from now, they're going to be able to go back and see what this world looked like.
Yes.
Pretty darn accurately at any moment of time, whether it's the stone gates that used to be here, all the way to who knows what else and what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we are
brand new building.
I guess through our activity, we are creating a timeline. We're creating a timeline. We can view it. Like, I know you can do that on Google Maps. You can view what did this road look like in 2009? What did it look like in 2000? I think it goes back to about 2008, 2009. My road, so I can see, whether I've made my garden look better or worse. But you certainly can, go back in time, and I think, even say, the way things are, around here now, eventually maybe they'll start building on this land. I don't know. I don't want to get into any trouble with the local council, but this is all greenbelt, I believe. But maybe 10 years, 15 years, who knows? Things are expanding, population's growing. We either go up or across. So
yeah, of course. Well, what do they say? I think they say that the Earth. I'm going to get the numbers all
it's
wrong.
flat. So you're not going to tell me it's flat.
I think it's. Oh no, not that.
Okay.
I'll tell you though. I did read a few articles that the estimate is that the Earth, as it is that we know it today, the way we approach it today, can hold about 13 billion people.
Okay. The way we've planned it. The way we've planned it, or literally
the way that between accessible land and the way that we use it and the ability to farm and accessible to fresh water and all of those types of things. I'm hearing.
Oh, we have a.
I'll try to get the numbers right. And if you're watching, go ahead and just. I disappeared.
I think you disappeared. What was the number? What was it? So we were up to 13. It holds 13
billion.
Yeah, 13 billion.
13 billion is like the threshold, and then I think we're at about 8 or 9 billion right now.
Okay.
So I'll do some work, and if you're watching this and you know the numbers, go ahead and just put it down in the comments below and embarrass me for even bringing it up. But it's really kind of interesting because, to your point, we're either going to have to live growing up, we're going to have to find new ways to farm, we're going to have to do whatever. And imaging, really interesting when you think about it. I've got, for example, a buddy of mine who runs a drone company.
Okay.
And he actually flies very, very high resolution digital cameras over the farms, and they compile all of those pictures, like literally tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of pictures over the farms. And then they can analyze the crop, and they can identify where they have bugs, where they have water issues, where they have soil issues. They can say, hey, we're going to plant here and not there. And it's all by this map of pictures that are being put together with drones that are just flying over and photographing the countryside.
Yeah. Wow, amazing.
It's all about the image. Pixels are our friend.
So, Jim, we've talked, how I like talking about myself. However, you've been to New York. Do you want to tell me about your trip to New York?
I did go to New York.
You did?
Yeah, I went out to New York because we did this really interesting project with a company. In fact, I got a little video. Let me just grab this up here for a second.
We need more videos. We need another video now.
Yeah, and I can just turn this camera around here for a second. Yeah, and so I'll put this in here. So this is a non-camera thing right here. This is for the company called Arcimoto.
Yep.
And Arcimoto is an electric car startup. And they're onto something really interesting, which is a small little two-seater, very narrow footprint, about 100-mile range on a charge, 75 miles an hour, really high torque. So it gets out of its way and everything else. It's a really interesting and impressive product.
Okay.
And the reason I was in New York, and the reason why Arcimoto's got a slide up there right now, is because I worked with them to create a virtual drive.
Okay.
So what we did with them is we took Vuze cameras and we suspended them in here in front of a driver, and we captured a VR experience. So when people came to the trade show in New York, which was something called the Wall Street Journal Festival of Everything,
right?
And the Festival of Everything is, it's all kinds of new tech, and there was everybody there from, music companies with new musical kind of digitalized instruments. There's a whole fashion and beauty bar, and then there's this technology kind of electric car stuff. Anyway, neither here nor there. We put hundreds of people who sat in the Arcimoto vehicle and held onto the handlebars with a VR headset on and took a ride through the Oregon countryside, because their company is based in Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful way. Like, people got off and they're like, oh my goodness, I have to go get one of these cars.
Wow. Yes.
And the reason they got inspired was because the VR experience, like, they saw the car, they sat in there and they could vision themselves driving through the countryside or running down to get the groceries or putting it in their delivery business or whatever it was. So that was a really fun and interactive way to work with the medium. And we're going to go back and create some new stuff. I wanted to show all the viewers here today a bit more about the experience, but because of licensing and rights right now, I'm not able to show it. But as soon as I'm able to post it, I'm going to actually post the entire virtual drive, and you'll be able to see what it's all about.
And that's coming.
So that was fun.
So as soon as you get it, it will be out there on Facebook. As soon as you get the permission.
That's right.
Okay.
As soon as I get the permissions, we'll get it out there. And you know what? I'll even ask them to do a little bit of a behind the scenes and how they made it a little bit or something like that, because the idea applies to so many different verticals. So if you're in the marketing space or doing events work or something like that, putting in VR gives a whole nother level of immersion and brand engagement and understanding of the technology. And now for not a lot of money, right? Like our cameras run $439. Like it's really affordable. You can make some great experience. You don't need a 6-digit budget to make VR anymore.
No, and I think to take your point where, you know, there's opportunities, I don't think it works for everything, but I think this is a really great example. I think it's a perfect example for this kind of thing. How did you deal with motion sickness? Was there because in my, let me just shamelessly plug, in my book that I love to mention, there is a section that talks about virtual nose, and when you've got motion, and when I've been doing my experiments with the VuzeXR, one thing I've been very careful about is motion and moving around, because it does induce motion sickness very quickly. But cars are very interesting in that they have their own inbuilt virtual nose. In that the bonnet, if you put the camera on the front on, if you put it on the windscreen, and I'm not recommending you do this necessarily, but if you very safely put it on the windscreen, you have an automatic virtual.
That was Peter's idea.
It was let me just check with my lawyers told me to decline all.
Don't do that.
Do not do what I just suggested. But if you were crazy enough to put your camera on the front windscreen of a car, then the virtual nose is actually the engine area. What's the front bit of a car? I can't remember now. I'm too worried about my lawyer.
We call it we call it the hood.
The hood.
You call it the bonnet.
The bonnet. That's right. Yeah. I do.
And the boots somewhere in the back.
Boots,
right?
Yeah. The boots at the back. So yeah. So on the hood, on the bonnet, you actually have something in the shot that keeps your mind, that keeps your eyes. There's a still area relative to the things that are moving around you, and that's quite important for reducing. Doesn't solve motion sickness, but it reduces it significantly. If all you can see is
there's two things that we did. So here's the two things that we did with this experience that made a big difference. So you're 100% right, and I agree with you 100% about having that point of reference.
Yes.
What we call that is the cockpit effect, and that when we shot the car and you're holding on to the handlebars and you've got the windscreen that's up there and it is stationary.
Yes.
So it's like that's your cockpit. And our brain is like, oh, I'm used to driving and I got this frame, and it tends not to bother you. The other little piece of advice that we gave people when they went into the experience is just like when you're driving a car or when you're riding a motorcycle, when you go around a corner, don't just keep looking straight, because that's not what we do. Because if I keep looking straight when I go around a corner, the scene is going to go horizontally in front of my eyes, and it's very unnerving. It can make you feel like you have a nausea. But if when you turn, you look where you're going, right? This is the natural motion that we do. Then you're going to track with that motion, and it's not going to cross horizontally in front of you. You don't get sick. That being said, we did minimize the number of turns and stuff. Like, we didn't go down like some crazy road and stuff like that. Like, we went through a covered bridge and we went down, some rolling hills and stuff like that. So I mean, it's just a really great experience.
That sounds really, really good. And people will be able to have that experience using their headsets and that sort of thing. See on Facebook. That's
right.
In
so
3D.
once we actually post this,
3D, 360.
So once we actually post it, 360.
Okay.
360. We're going back and we're going to make a 3D version. We opted not to do it, but I'm not going to disclose why for this particular experience. But there's some really interesting things that we're working on with Arcimoto to do it. So, Great. That'll come soon too. But this one's 360, and I just ended up having a lot of fun and doing a lot of crazy 360 stuff while I was there.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. And
yeah,
is there anything else you'd like to? Because I would like to bring up a slightly different subject. But before we move on, what else have you got?
Is it a sore subject?
It's a sore subject. No, it's not a sore subject. It's nothing that controversial.
I want to bring up two different things, cool. Or three different things, whatever. Sure, we'll try to make it as easy as possible. So first of all, when I was in New York, I went to this thing called the Vessel.
Let's just have a look.
Now, this here
is a
new. It's kind of that's a good idea. Bring it all the way in. Yeah. So this is basically a new vertical park, and inside of this park are a whole bunch of stairs. Right, so you can walk up inside of this thing called the Vessel, and you can take and get this nice experience. So anyway, I was standing out here, and I had a little monopod. I had my camera on it, and I caught this picture. And I shot this with the VuzeXR in 360 5.7K resolution. From that exact same position, that exact same picture spot, I was able to make this picture too. Okay. So it looks like it's an entirely different place that I took the picture. But in reality, it's actually the exact same exposure as this picture. It's just that I cropped it differently in post. And then I did another one, which is this one here.
And this is what you get from a 6,000 pixel by 3,000 pixel image that's taken. You have some options.
That's right. So you have all kinds of options later on. So what I was able to do is in one exposure, I could make 3 different pictures out of it.
Yeah, nice.
And I didn't have to spend my time while I was there trying to figure out how best to, frame my shot or whatever. And
very nice.
I could really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if I can pick this up.
Well, do you know what's interesting? You mentioned this, Jim, because literally today I've been at Toyota Motor Manufacturing, and I've been using the VuzeXR for very similar purpose. Where let me just shift that.
Here, I'm going to turn this around here real quick, and then there we go. Anyway, you're saying like
using there's
Jim.
Stuck on me. Oh, it's stuck to your head. If you, it's a good look.
Oh yeah, how do I get it off? Oh, there we go. I can pick it off.
That's a good presentation tool, hands-free presentation tool.
Anyway,
so no, I was just going to say,
so you're at Toyota.
I was at Toyota Motor Manufacturing and using the Vuze camera in a very similar way, actually, to capture a whole area. I wasn't going to use the whole. I mean, I deliberately was not going to use the whole image because I was standing behind it, but I knew there was a significant area that I was going to use, and also the format that they needed the photograph in. The area they were going to print it out was going to lend itself to quite a long image, and also they got production lines, and so it was really, really interesting. And it's interesting in that there's plenty of options for me now to look at how much of this image do I want, because it's going to be interesting, medium crop or very, very wide crop. There's going to be lots of interesting visual information within that, and plenty of options after the event. So and
absolutely,
and whether it's the VuzeXR or something like the Insta360 One, same kind of setup really, in that you're at 5.7K, you've got a 6,000 by 3,000. I'm not sure on the Insta One X, but I presume it's something along those lines. So you've got a very large image to work with. So great.
It's basically 18 megapixels.
Yes,
and if you really think about what these cameras are doing, it's 18 megapixels at 30 frames per second, right? So, I talk to people about that are traditional photographers, and they say, wow, it seems like it's a lot of processing power to work with these pictures. And I say, yeah, okay. So if your DSLR is 18 megapixel, and if you open 30 of those and then wanted to do a little bit of a color balance and then close all 30 of those, it takes some time. And that's what happens in 5.7K resolution, because people don't really realize that the difference between 4K and 5.7K is actually pretty significant. So a 4K image is only about 7 megapixels, 6.8, whatever it is. Let's just call it 7. We'll round it to that. But a 5.7 is 18 megapixels. So even though it doesn't sound like that much more resolution, there's a lot more pixels in image.
Absolutely, yeah.
Awful lot more.
Yeah. Because the image, because you've got, say, I mean, you could associate it with the same kind of description for HD TV and then 4K TV. It takes four.
That's right.
It takes 4 HD TVs to make a 4K TV because it's twice.
That's right.
Twice the width, but it's not. It doesn't quite work how you think it would. You think, oh, it's 2 TVs. Well, actually, you need 4 TVs worth of pixels to make a 4K image. Sort of
four times the data.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
So, did I see, incidentally, that VuzeXR is now taking RAW? Maybe this is something it's always done, but I don't think it's done RAW. It's part of the update.
It does not do RAW yet. We are working on it.
I'm sure something. Okay.
It was a little bit of a surprise to me. Not surprise. I knew that it's in the pipeline, but I saw it on one of our Facebook posts from our support team.
Okay.
So we hear the market and we know that it's something that they want. So stay tuned.
Sorry. I hope I didn't drop you in it there, but yeah.
No. You're fine. Like I said, it was on Facebook and somebody within our team posted it. So. Great. You know, we're working in that direction.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great stuff. Let me come on to something else. We mentioned viewing things in headsets. Yesterday, was it yesterday? The Oculus Quest and Oculus Rift S came out. So exciting.
So it was either 1 or 2 days ago, but it was it yesterday? Yeah, I think it was yesterday.
Have you seen them at all?
Very exciting times.
Yeah, have you seen them at all? Have you?
So I haven't seen them since they've been in the wild. I went to OC5 last year.
Right.
And I actually got to use one. They had a huge demo set up and everything. And I was actually able to use them then.
Both models or the Quest? Okay, yeah. Completely untethered, free. In the wild.
Untethered, free, in the wild. They had, I won't try to do it in meters, but I'm going to say about a 2,000 square foot arena setup with some barriers and stuff in there. And you put it on and it's almost like doing a backpack experience when you go to like one of the events by the Void or something like that, where you really do move that freely, and the inside out tracking is absolutely amazing.
Wow. Okay. Because I've been reading reviews and there's big headlines of this is the equivalent to sort of, you know, the launch of the Apple phone in VR terms and all this kind of stuff. So there's big headlines, but I haven't had a chance to try it out yet. I think personally, I want to make the most of what I have at the moment and really try and push, you know, the technology that I have, and then maybe see how people feel about the upgrade. I probably wouldn't go for the Quest. I'd probably go for the S because I really want to be tethered to a very high spec machine, just to really push the graphics. But I mean, maybe eventually go for the Quest. But I think that's
it all depends on the job that you're trying to do.
Yeah,
right. I mean, it's just like anything else. Oculus Go at it's $200 US. I don't know what it is in pounds, but it's an amazing headset for not a lot of money. And there's no reason, if you don't own an Oculus Go today, go spend $200 and buy it. Because even if you buy the Quest or the S or anything else in their line, or you go get an HTC Vive or whatever it is, the basic foundation of what you can do in a VR headset is demonstratable using something as simple as a $200 Oculus Go.
I don't own an Oculus Go. I think
you don't.
No. The shock, the prolonged shock of it. I don't.
I can't believe.
I got a Samsung Gear VR.
Okay.
But I do know that the Vuze actually will connect directly with the Oculus Go. So
yes, it will.
So
DLNA connect in, and you can just stream directly to your headset from the camera.
It's a Sony invention.
4K, 30 frames per second.
It's a Sony invention, isn't it?
I know that. I believe it is. I think that I worked on that back. Oh, you got that weird face again.
Oh, that's the shock face.
I worked on that back in my old Sony days.
That's the smiley face. That's you got your joysticks.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, happy. Just try not to shock each other. Try not to do this. Trying to shock each other too much with. But anyway, those are the two new headsets, and I mean, I'll try and try one out. I mean, I don't think there's not many places that provide demos. It can't really go into a shop because they wouldn't last very long. But I'd be very interested, and I'm going to keep up with reviews and different things that are going on. So yeah.
But you know what? Here's another great piece. if you're still trying to figure out how to get into this category, start going and look up for local meetups and groups, because these early adopters that are been in here for a while trying to figure this out are willing to share their knowledge and experience, not just on the camera and the capture side, but on the playback and the headsets and the programming and the automation. And there are so many layers to the onion, so to speak, in this category. I don't care if you're a computer programmer, you are a user interface designer, if you're a graphic artist, if you're a photographer, if you're a reader, it doesn't really matter. Voiceover talent, there are so much commerce opportunity to build a brand, a reputation, a business in virtual reality today. I like to talk about it as visual innovation and all of the things that bring imagery to life is changing. And so it's really what we did back in the old days, in my Sony days, when we started to introduce digital cameras to the world. And, you know, the FD Mavica took pictures onto a floppy disk drive.
Yes.
And photo stores, when we walked in with it, said, "Are you crazy? That's terrible. I can print 36 pictures and give my customer 2 prints in the time it takes you to transfer your pictures to your computer."
Yep.
Okay, fine. It was in its infancy. Where is digital photography today? VR is in the same space now.
Let me ask you something that interests me in terms of your opinion that I want to know about. Where do you think, say, in the near future, the next 5 to 10 years, people will make money from VR, 360 photography, this kind of thing? All the things we've been discussing. I mean, we talked about Matterport. That has quite there's a variety of sectors there, but I'm talking about the entry level, the cameras that, you know, the Instas, the Vuze, the cameras that are very accessible to a large market, and the consumer market. Where can people make money with those cameras?
The fastest way to make money today using a VR camera is to grab yourself a VuzeXR, or really, quite frankly, any of the 3D VR 180 cameras. I'll tell you the Vuze just because I love and adore it, and it does so many different things. But start producing virtual reality content for YouTube in 3D VR, because you can monetize your channel. Once you get 1,000 subs, and if you're already a creator, a YouTube star or whatever, just start putting 3D 180 in there, and you can actually define your brand based on VR 180.
Okay.
And you'll get paid every time somebody watches your videos.
Yes. Yeah, it's a great way.
I'm not a YouTube star. I have a YouTube page. Quite frankly, I've done really nothing with it. I have, I think, 299 subs. If you want to follow me, I'll put it in the description below. I'll try to grow my subs.
Shameless promotion.
Yeah, shameless. There we go. But the point is a little bit different, which is there's some stuff on my channel, and quite frankly, I don't have that personality to go and do that. But there's a show that I did called Baking with Jim.
Okay.
And it's a ridiculous video of me making cookies. But even if you just watch the first minute and a half, the whole show is 20-something minutes long. You just watch the first minute and a half where I explain, I'm shooting this in VR 180. It's a 180-degree field of view. It allows me to walk over here to the sink and then walk over here to the oven, and you can see you watch that first little bit and you're like, I get it now. Like, I understand how a single camera position can give me basically a multi-camera shoot by letting the viewer be their own director.
Yep.
Because I just stage all of my action in a 180-degree field of view, and then I can follow what's happening. I can choose what I want to watch. If I want to see a close-up, I can lean over and look at the close-up. If I want to, kind of lean back and get you see everything. Anyway, I could rave about it forever, the technology, but my recommendation, if you want to start making money today, start creating VR 180 content, put it onto your channel, and start to get known as a VR or 3D creator for YouTube.
Yeah, and you're going to put your link right down below to your cookie video. It's going to be right.
I'll put it right down in there.
Okay.
And then you hit the, and I watch enough videos myself to
know the peer
you have
pressure.
to ask everybody to push the subscribe button, and then push the little bell so that every time I post a new video, you'll get a notice and you'll be able to see what I'm doing.
Ah, yes.
And that's about all I know about YouTube. And if you're watching this and you want to help me get better at YouTube, please let me know. I'd love to get in there and get better at it. It just takes time.
Now, in relation to what you've mentioned, there is one challenge. I was talking to Carlos, I think it's Carlos Ocho in Spain.
In Spain?
Yes.
Yeah.
He, in fact, Vuze and Humanize introduced me to him as somebody with similar interests. So I've had many great conversations with him. And one of the challenges, because he was talking about ideas for presenting at conferences and stuff, and I said to him, well, one idea, and again, this was something that I did mention in the book that I wrote on 360 video, that one idea you could employ to really challenge yourself as a VR creator is take a film and imagine it created in VR, or take a concept for a film and ask yourself, okay, VR does have some challenges. How can these be overcome? And I used one example of a film that has really amazing visuals and is quite an understated film, and it's one of those Marmite films that you either love or hate, but it's called Jerry, and it's got Matt Damon and Casey Affleck in, and they get lost in the desert. Okay. And in many ways, I used it as an example and managed to get in touch with the director, who gave me permission to actually use stills to put in the book. And in many ways, that is a great example of a film that has amazing visuals that you would have to overcome some of the technological problems of moving a 3D camera or 360 camera through the desert. But I know people are working on robots that are simple sort of monopods that will carry cameras and have stabilizers and all sorts of things. How can you translate these types of films to work in virtual reality? And there are films that simply wouldn't work, but there are films that you could overcome some of those challenges, or maybe you don't. Maybe
I think you can make everything work. I think
Really?
There's everything. I think so. I think so, because every creative expression can be. I don't want to say challenged, but it can be. So, like I was looking at. I think I talked about it last time. Stanley Kubrick in the 40s and 50s was a still photographer. And there's a whole bunch of his black and white pictures that are absolutely amazing. They're timeless. And when you look at them, I think there's like 75 of them up on a website right now. And when you look at them, you're like, every single one of those pictures tells a story. And what I'm trying to encourage even myself to do is, in today's modern world, where I'm distracted with color and high resolution photography and all of these other things that are happening, how can I make that environment come to life in a way where I go, wow, I look at that single frame and I can tell that story. And I think that's what's missing today as creators. I'll go down yet another path because I think this was really funny. There's a picture I saw on the internet, and it had a picture of a roll of 120 film. Now, 120 film was like the professional film that was used back in the 50s and 60s, and it had usually 12 frames on it, somewhere between 6 and 12. Well, let's just say 12 frames. And underneath it, it said, out of that roll of 12, you had 6 good pictures. Okay. Then next to that was a roll of 35 millimeter film, which was that next generation of film that, made it really convenient to take a lot more pictures. And you could buy a roll of 36 exposures. And underneath that, it said 6 good pictures. Okay. And then next to that was a digital memory card from a DSLR, and it had 2,000 pictures on it, right? You can get 2,000 pictures on it. And underneath it, it said 6 good pictures.
Yeah.
Because what we've done is we've gone from taking a very precious material, film, which was expensive and limited, right? I only have 12 pictures. So I'm going to spend a lot of time to be able to express what this scene means to me.
Yes.
And then we started to lose that with 35 millimeter cameras because it was like, hey, film is cheaper, it's more available. I'll take some extra pictures and we'll see what happens.
Yes.
And now we've lost that almost entirely now with mobile phones and digital cameras, and we take literally thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures, but I shouldn't say none, few tell an emotional story. Few of them do you actually look at that you can dive into and get lost in that picture. And so that's a really interesting.
Yeah,
my challenge is we can go in and we can recreate everything if you put the right time and thought and effort into how do we apply today's technology to something that was either done long ago or that we quite frankly are imagining new ourselves today.
But I think when you talk about communities and communities meeting, if there was one, say if I was leading a VR community in Chester and there's, 10 people, 200 people, 2,000, I think there's only about 2,000 people in Chester, but if I was, however many people there are, that'd be the first challenge I would set is, let's take a concept. You either take a concept for a film or a short film and say, right, this is what happens in the short film. How do we make this work in VR? How do we make this work with some of the technology we have access to today? How can we make it visually beautiful? Right. How can we make it interesting? Because you can set up a great shot like this, but what happens next? Where's the storytelling? And storytelling is an important principle in itself. And actually, in many respects, it's one of the areas that I find more of a challenge for myself because I spend so much time trying to get visually interesting photographs. I find that, like when I was at university years ago doing some music videos, they were always visually really interesting, but it was like, what does it mean? Well, it's kind of loosely based on some sort of story. So storytelling is quite a challenge in itself. So you can be a great storyteller but have poor visuals. So the ideal is to really develop both of those skills and become a great storyteller, but someone who's also capable of capturing some very, I guess the word is arresting images.
So what I like this. So what I say in my talks is this: story is the new quality.
Yes.
And that until somebody looks at your work and says, "Oh my God, that is an amazing story. I got this out of it, or I understood that, or whatever," as opposed to them looking at it and saying, "Well, your highlights over here, I don't see as much detail, and if I could get some more shadow detail." If they're looking at your work and analyzing the quality of the work, then you're missing as a creator the emotion that comes with story. Yes. Because if you have the story, the medium itself is going to deliver. The Blair Witch Project, which was shot on a little Sony Handycam using night shot technology, terrible pictures, especially when you blew it up to the size of a motion picture screen, but made millions and millions and millions of dollars and inspired a whole new generation of thrillers and horror movies and psychological thrillers because they challenged the medium by story. It was the story that you fell in love with. It were the characters. It was the way it built. It was right. It wasn't the fact that it was shot on multi-million-dollar Panavision equipment and staff of thousands of people.
I do think, yes, I do think you can. I mean, one of the things that I really try and pride myself on in my own business is, look, I don't have a crew of 20 people. I'm a freelance, video producer, photographer, designer. But what I can do is understand the technology and understand the equipment enough to achieve a decent level. So you can go on, some of the clients, they could go and hire an organization that will bring a dedicated lighting crew, a dedicated, you've got a makeup person, you've got this, you've got that, you've got the other. But actually, there's a whole variety of skills you can build up and not cut corners, but you kind of getting 2/3, 3/4 of the way to the quality. Yeah. And yet,
absolutely,
yes, if you're going to make it for TV, that sort of thing. So I don't think it's good to lose that skill, but I do think it's good to challenge yourself and make sure that you're not getting wrapped up, as you are kind of alluding to. Don't get wrapped up in the resolution, in the kind of highlights, in this, in in the fine detail of a photograph. I think if you're a print company, it's absolutely vital. I think if you're a photographer taking a picture of a product, absolutely crucial. But we're talking about other things here. So
that's right. That's right. We're talking about the future of storytelling. We're talking about innovation. We're talking all about that type of stuff. I've had another great talk with you. I think that we are probably at about a time where people are like, "Oh my goodness, I got to go have my dinner or whatever."
Can't take any more of these
what
guys.
I'd like to do is, but let's do this. Let's agree to do this again in a couple weeks. We'll get it on the calendars, and then I did see something. I don't know if you have it anywhere, if you can get it, and maybe you could play us out, because I saw a piece that you had created. It was a 2D video, and we're going back to the music, and then maybe you can kind of play us out.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you for setting me up for this one. I don't know if you want to do the honors with the. I don't know. Switch over the camera. There we go.
There we go.
So this.
Do you want to? Say
very briefly, just quickly. This is actually made with a Vuze Plus. It was made about a year ago. You've also got metal. You've got metal FX and flux, metal flux used creating the smoke and the sky. And basically it was created on the green screen. We talked about green screen last week. And I wrote the track myself. And it's called The Journey. I'll just play a little bit.
How fitting. That's fantastic. Peter, as always, it's great talking with you.
Good to talk to you.
We'll do this again shortly. Actually, let's go back over here. Hold on. Let me just mute this for a second.
Sure.
There we go. We'll put it here. Yeah, I got kind of loud, but no, it's always great talking with you.
Good to talk to you, Jim.
I love these conversations. Yes. Hopefully our viewers are learning a little bit. Again, put some comments down below if there's other things that you'd want to learn, and we'll kind of keep this going, and we'll see if we can bring some more people into this crazy world we call virtual reality.
Let me shake your hand, Jim. I think the handshake kind of works.
It kind of does. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll see you next time. And bye to everybody.
All right, sounds good.
Bye-bye.